And to win a championship, you need to have multiple people on your team to be in a zone. And you could make the case, and you might have just done over the last couple minutes, Tim, that the Pacer most in a zone is Rick Carlisle. And he's just in that coaching zone, his staff as well. What are they doing? You just gave, I guess, one example there. But what are they doing since the first of the year, pretty much? I mean, the Pacers had one of the best records since the calendar turned to 2025. What are they doing, Tim? What is Carlisle doing here?
I think specifically what he has done, and I give him a lot of credit for this. I've known Rick a very long time. In fact, he worked at ESPN for at least 1 year. I remember back in studio, we did a lot of TV together. I got to know him very well. So I know how bright he is. He has done an incredible job adapting to modern style offense. If you'd have told me a Rick Carlisle team would look this way and play this way offensively, 15 years ago, I would have said there's no way. He's adapted to it now because the personnel dictates that he has to. Tyrese Halliburton has to play a certain way to be this effective. What they do better than anyone in the league is make incredibly quick decisions with the ball. There's not a lot of wasted dribbles with this offense. It's all player movement, ball movement, and quick hitters. When you get it, you go. You know where the next read is supposed to be. So it makes it a lot harder defensively to catch up to it. Now, Oklahoma City is the best team in the league defensively, and not just by today's standards. Rich, I think historically this is one of the best defenses I've ever seen. It's done differently. It's not like the teams I played against in the 90s, like the Knicks and the Bulls and the Pistons, the Heat, that mauled you physically. These guys are handsy, but it's all about speed. The only way you can play against this level of team speed is for the ball to move through the air or quickly and decisively to the next driving gap without holding it, without over-dribbling, because that's when they start to load up on you. They get sets of eyes on you. I've described their defense as putting food into a fish tank when the ball goes in the lane. That's what it looks like the way they swarm the paint. What do you do to combat it? The ball has to move through the air, and you've got to have a lot of player movement off the ball. And Rick has done a great job at making sure they've got great spacing, balance, the ball moves. Everybody's bought in. He has adapted to his personnel, and they've created this real juggernaut offensively. But like I said, they were really running in mud those two games in Oklahoma City. I didn't recognize that team. Last night, that's the team I've been watching for most of the last 3 or 4 months. The question is now, can Oklahoma City rein that back in?
What are we missing about the Pacers? Why are the Pacers constantly being overlooked? Kind of reverse engineering this conversation, Tim, right? Because right now, the city of Vegas still has the Oklahoma City Thunder as the favorites to win the NBA championship. What is everybody missing? Why are we missing things on the Pacers so frequently?
Rich, going into the series, I thought Oklahoma City was going to win the series in 7 games. So I was giving, I think, Indiana an appropriate amount of respect because I've been watching that team all year. I talked about them a lot last year when I felt like nobody really was paying attention because I think they're that lethal offensively. So here's what I think has happened. Last year, people kind of disregarded what they did because they did catch a break with all the injuries in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they didn't have to deal with a healthy Joel Embiid. They didn't have to deal with a healthy Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Knicks were walking wounded by the end of that series, had no depth whatsoever, playing guys 45 minutes in playoff games. So people looked at it like, okay, yeah, they're a nice team. Halliburton had this meteoric rise like mid-season last year, so people were noticing him. But they still felt like they didn't take the East's best punch last year, and they ended up in the conference finals against a superior team, the best team in the league. So, okay, what do you have for an encore? They come out of the gate 10-15. And I think people were looking at them and saying, there you go, that they're just like the Hawks a few years ago, made their run to the conference finals and never to be heard from again. And I didn't really ascribe to that because I know what I saw last year and I was waiting for it to click. They had some injuries at the start of the year. They got some of their bigs back. They got healthy. And from January 1 on, what you saw were metrics on both ends of the floor. There was only a few teams that were like top 10 in the league on both ends. They were one of those teams. And so if you're watching them night by night, they really surged. But by that time, I think a lot of people had checked out on them. They weren't paying attention to them when they were 5 games under 500, like past Christmas. And now you look up here by March, you're going, wait, this team's pretty hot. And then by the time they got to the postseason, I think anybody that didn't think this was a legitimate threat to do exactly what they're doing, I just don't think you just weren't giving them enough credit for the products. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Now, what an encore. And now people, I think going into next year, understand this team is a legitimate threat. Now, they've got some very difficult decisions to make with their roster. And do they want to go into the luxury tax or not? They've been reluctant to do it. You want to keep this together, you're probably going to have to. You're going to have to pay some guys. And they've got some decisions to make. But certainly those decisions might become easier if you win a title.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.